Hi all. Now you will hear a brief retelling of the film Ip Man. Enjoy watching. In the 30s of the 20th century, Foshan's province has become the country's center for training. Kung Fu Master Little just opened his school and invites the Master Ip Man to measure their strength in battle. But first, the hospitable host fed him dinner in company. Finally, my family. It's time for a duel, which will take place behind closed doors, so that no one knows the name of the winner. However, his witness is the boy Owen, who climbed a tree for his kite. Master of martial arts in the Wing Chun style, leaves no chance for the opponent. And soon he finds himself lying on the floor, it seems, without even understanding. How did this happen? Master Lio clarified once again that no one should know about his defeat. But thanks to the boy, soon everyone in the area was gossiping about how much he suffered. Lio's students also learned about this. Businessman in a restaurant, good friend and Paquan suggests him to invest in opening a cotton factory. Lilu, disgraced, also bursts in there. He attacks Yuan and accuses him of ruining his reputation. But the young man doesn't see anything wrong with it, because he just told the truth. His older brother Lin tries to pacify the truth teller. The police captain came running to hear the noise, and in between times, he gets indignant. Why do we need martial arts if you have a weapon? And then the jeepman knocks the drum out of his revolver and asks in the future not to pull out weapons unnecessarily. Quan receives money from Ip Man and also asks to accept his son as a student. Lin changes martial arts teachers like gloves and brags to the IP that I learned new moves. But against the master his skills are useless. Mrs. IP is annoyed because that my husband fights all day and does not pay attention to family. Some provinces came to the street of martial arts. Their leader Jin challenges one of the teachers to a duel. He brutally beats a man and knocks him out. Next, Cypher merges and hides behind the backs of the students. He managed to run for a guandao or Chinese gleba, but I couldn't oppose anything to Gina with a sword. Only the individual entrepreneur was going to devote time to his family. How Lin distracted him and told him about the visiting masters, already familiar to as Mr. Lio, held of Jin's aggressive attacks for some time. But in the end, he was still defeated. One by one, the poor man defeated all the masters. So he decides to open his own school and finally get out of poverty. However, the noodle maker offers him to start. Defeat the best Ip Man. A whole crowd is moving towards the house of the great master and unceremoniously invades his home. Ip Man initially refuses, but Jin starts scratching his tongue, which irritates even the reserved Madam IP, and she gives the go-ahead for the fight in the house. Immediately, a policeman shows up at the house, but he doesn't want to prevent the fight. He asks the IP to defend the honor of the city. Jin scoffs and laughs that Wing Chun was invented by a woman. Newman answers him that the main thing is skill, not gender or age. During the fight, the kid rides out on a bicycle and gives it to his father so that he can figure it out faster. Otherwise, everything in the house will be broken and MOM would be upset. This is actually what Ip Man does. After a series of punches, he knocks Jin out with his feet. But when I came to my senses, the scoundrel grabs the sword. It's true that a broom was enough for the Ip Man to protect himself. He spanked her at Jin's, and he admitted that Ip Man's southern kung fu is stronger than his northern kung fu. The crowd claps their hands and rejoices at the victory of the local master. Every city resident is happy about this. Even sellers do not take money for purchased goods. Rumors also spread around the city that the IP master wants to open a school, but he himself denies it because he doesn't like to mess with students. In 1938, the Japanese army captured Foshan, destroyed factories and residential buildings, and thus deprived the residents of their livelihood. 300,000 Japanese laid off, city population up to 70,000. The House of Deceit was confiscated and turned into the headquarters of the Japanese army. He and his family found themselves homeless. In exchange for a bag of rice, he gives away one of his last valuables, a wristwatch, handing out cereals together. Mad meets Quan. His factory one of 12, which were not destroyed by the Japanese, but he can't give the money to the IP yet. The master refuses to dine with a friend and hurries to his family when everything was mortgaged or sold. And for the first time in my life, I went looking for work. They take him through connections, plows in a coal mine. The mine owner also practiced martial arts. Therefore, he prefers to hire former craftsmen. There he meets an old friend Lin. During lunch and hides food for the family, so Lin shares her. The guy is sad because that I lost my brother after the invasion began. Colonel Satok arrives at the mine, accompanied by a former police officer. who now works as a translator for the Japanese. He is looking for kung fu masters who fought. If no one spoke to Japanese karateka's at first, but when it turned out, what a reward is a bag of rice. A lot of hard workers volunteered at once, including Eileen. Master Elio has just emerged victorious on the tatami in battle, for which I received the promised bag of rice. After General Miura challenges 3 people to fight at once, and everyone will get their rice no matter the outcome. Lin and 2 other fighters took a stance, and Miura quickly scattered all 3. 2 Chinese decided not to get up anymore and admit defeat. Only Lin continued, fight, and even spat blood in Miura's face. For this, the general beats the guy to death. The next day, the individual entrepreneur found the box, which Lin previously lost. He never waited for Lin himself to find out what happened to the guy. IP agreed to go out and fight today. Get another bag of rice. Self-confident Master Elio shows desire to fight with 3 karatekas at the same time. Unfortunately, he did not calculate his strength and was quickly punished with 3 karatekas. He stopped the fight and took his risk for the previous victory, but was meanly shot by Colonel Sato. Miura threatened the colonel so that this doesn't happen again. Enraged Deception enters the arena and demands that 10 fighters be put up against him. 10 karateka attacks a kung fu fighter, and this time Ip Man's blows are much harsher than in previous battles. He literally destroys his opponents, breaks their jaws and legs. The same fate befalls the latter. Still standing fighter. 10 bags of rice await the winner. But he didn't come here for rice and to break the Japs, and he's going to come back again. Nevertheless, Miura was delighted. What's your name? I'm just Chinese. Then the police get the translator for it. What serves the occupiers? Sad Ip Man returns home, and his wife treats his broken fists. Ip Man reflects on the uselessness of his skills and how miserable this world is. Meanwhile, Jin formed a gang, which includes Lin's younger brother Yuan. He steals a truck and then breaks into the Quan factory. The genie offers the businessman to buy back the cargo, which they just stole. Bandit beats Quan and his son. But that doesn't make sense, because he has no money anyway. The boy resorts to the IP for help, but the master doesn't have time. The bandits have already left with the goods for you, and all the factory workers ask to teach them kung fu, so that they can stand up for themselves in the future. This time the great master does not refuse. Foshan residents of all ages came to the training. They repeat the movements after their teacher. The biggest deception started working part-time in a factory. Meanwhile, General Miura is outraged by that Ip Man never returned. The translator is lying, that he doesn't know where the individual entrepreneur is. He still brings Colonel Sato to the master, which for some reason was already heading towards his pretty wife, but was beaten like the Japanese soldiers accompanying him. After this, the family has to flee. The translator is beaten again, this time with a stick, and Miura orders to find Yap Man. It turns out that a repentant Chinese man is hiding his family at home. IB is very grateful to him. Bandits are approaching the factory again. All the workers were alarmed. They are ready to fight back, using cognition, Wing Chun, but in practice it turned out to be not so easy to fight, and the ladies snatch from the Kirov River. Fortunately, the deception arrived in time and repelled the women. The rest of the thugs took out axes, but it's all useless. Wing Chun master blocks and dodges all blows. He is much faster than all these sub-fighters. Only Jin and Yuan are left, but because of the bamboo pole, they can't even get close to the master. The leader gets very hurt in the air and runs away with his gang. IP stops Yuan, instructs him to do the right thing, and gives him the iron box of his late brother. Inside, the guy finds his folded kite. The translator warns, so that he does not return to the factory. Miura is already waiting for him there. The Japanese took all the workers outside for interrogation. Quan was the first to be dealt. To stop the execution, the Ip Man immediately surrenders. Sato already wanted to shoot the Chinese, but the general stops him. The master can save his life if he agrees to teach kung fu to Japanese soldiers. Of course, he refuses, but he challenges Miura to a fight and is taken away. And leaving, he asks the clan to take his relatives out of the city. Sato again suggests just executing like. But for Miura, defeating the Wing Chun master is a matter of honor, and he is going to announce his victory throughout China. The general personally comes to the Chinese in his cell with a tray full of food he wants, so that the fight is fair and well supported. But he refuses to accept food from the enemy, so that the IP's wife does not resist. The clan tied her up, woman crying and worried that she won't see her husband again. She announces that a fair fight will take place for the sake of knowledge sharing, friendly atmosphere, and establishing lasting peace between countries. The convoy is led by Epman. The day before, Sato came into his cell and threatened to shoot him if he dares to win the fight. I came to see the iconic confrontation. Yen started with himself. Fighters successfully block each other's blows, but deception is still more skillful and sometimes penetrates the Japanese. After the throw, Mira briefly seizes the initiative, but quickly loses it. How can? Japanese man tries to defend himself from IP's signature thresher. Now almost. Each blow of a kung fu fighter causes damage to the general. Mayora's body gradually turns into a chop, and finally he falls. Chinese people rejoice and shout the name of the master. His family and Quan appeared in the crowd, who nevertheless returned to fashion. Suddenly Web Mana shoots Sato, and he falls and knowledge is lost. The Chinese rebelled, and the translator shoots Sato with his own pistol. Crowd surrounds IPA, and time confusion. He manages to escape with his family to Hong Kong. In 1945, the Japanese surrendered. In the 49th, Ipman opened the first Wing Chun school. There were many talented people among his students, the most famous of whom was Bruce Lee.